What's the difference between Hispanic and Latino?
Identifying as Black.
We're all technically white.
Do I look too Asian?
I would describe my racial identity as being an African American.
Chinese, Mexican, and German.
American and Mexican, California-centric Chicano.
Black Swede and Chickasaw Indian.
I am white. Pretty basic white.
It's kind of how I always identify myself within the notion of being Raza, Latino, Hispanic, and now with some people who identify it as Latinx or so. But me personally, I always identify from Chicano based on the movement and my influences from my family and the region in which I grew up in.
I'm the first generation of Nigerian immigrants. For me growing up, it was very hard for me to understand, like, what does it mean to be Black? Because I don't know what Black is. I'm not the descendant of slaves that I know of. Like, you know, there's certain shows or certain vernacular or certain things that I just wasn't aware of was part of the Black identity until much later in my life. I just thought, you know, this is just our family, this is where I grew up, and that's that.
I don't necessarily feel like an outsider. I feel like I'm just me. It's so hard to explain, but I think when you're mixed race, you take bits and pieces from different cultures, but you are just your own thing.
I'd rather be just called Black. We categorize ourselves by the color of our hair. Nobody else does.
I didn't really think about my culture or my race until about 5-6 years ago when I grew up in Arcadia, and then I actually moved into Los Angeles, and my group of friends expanded, and I had different viewpoints now, like learning different viewpoints. It wasn't until then that I really started to think about how my whiteness has affected my life or how it has shaped my life. I actually don't know what to identify as white culture because it feels so enormous.
One of the biggest issues is when I heard some of these kids say that they were kind of ashamed to be Latino or ashamed of this and that. They almost want to be white. It's just a matter of having a strong understanding of where your family's from, having those roots, but also knowing who you are and where you are going forward and what you're capable of.
My identity has always been something I've been in search of, wishing sometimes that I was part of one thing, but I don't know, I think that's the beauty of me is that I'm everything. You can't really put me in a box.
As I've gotten older and I've met more people who identify as Black and African American, there's just so many nuances to how you're raised and your background and all that paints a picture as to what the African American identity is.
It's always important to remember who you are, but never to be locked into the where it's ever something to shun other people or so. We're not all 100% anything. All of us are mixed with something in some blood. I identify as Chicano, but I know I have something in me somewhere.
I identify as whatever people call me because I'm like, hey, just don't shoot me. So I just try to live. Like that's my goal day to day, just to live.